Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to the chat show where we talk about empathy, employment, and innovation every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Going into the holiday season, we have tweaked the format a little bit to summarize our experience interacting with our amazing guests in 2020. Today, in part two of this holiday special segment, we will look back at the most impactful comments and analysis from some of the greatest mind in business, education, diversity and inclusion, and entertainment. Earlier this year, we invited Alan Chilson of BASF. Let's hear what he had to say about networking with empathy, especially during this difficult time.
Think networking becomes one of the key words, right? In the past we've often, you can sit and you can apply to jobs online, you wait to get emails, you wait to get phone calls that your application's been accepted, you're invited to an interview. But really, nowadays I think it's even more important than ever to network. And I'm hearing the words as I say that of a former colleague and friend. His name is Jerome Leday. And he's done a session several times at a conference called Networking is Not Just for Not Working. And to me, that means you should always be networking, even when you're not looking for a job, or if you're a business development person, when you're not looking to sell, or, fill in whatever your action is. But, you should always be working on your networking and building relationships. To me, empathetic outreach is part of networking. And it's when, we reach out to give or offer assistance versus when you're reaching out to request assistance, right? So it's kind of paying it forward or putting some money in the jar before you ask for some out of the jar. And I think you should reach out to those in your network that you can tell need some help right now. And a lot of those people are posting with the Ready for Work label on LinkedIn, or you can see that they've been recently impacted. They could use your help. And, they may not want to reach out to you to ask for help because maybe they've not been doing a good job of networking when they didn't need help. But to me, the empathy comes from us reaching out to people and saying, hey, I see you've been impacted. Might I be able to help?
The year 2020 has presented many challenges to all of us. While the world is facing a pandemic, the United States has seen escalating racial tensions, and our economy has been hit hard too. This year has shown why we need to come together and address equity more than ever before. Rondo Winson of Bristol Myers Squibb was one of our guests on the chat show, and this is what he had to say.
We're in 2020, and it has been a struggle. It's been a challenging year, quite frankly, for us all. And there's a few things that I'll share. Now, while 2020 has not really brought anything, newer to life, it has illuminated the struggles that we've been facing for a number of years. And that's where we have to come together even stronger to combat them, right? So when COVID-19 hits, it hits minorities very hard. The racial tensions, have probably been the highest in my adult life, quite frankly. Our economy was hit hard, and it's pushed us to a call to action more than ever before. And I've had more conversations, whether internally or externally, about these issues. And it's a beautiful thing that we're having these courageous conversations. But conversations devoid of action is not going to cut it. So I want to share a couple of things that Bristol Myers Squibb is pledged publicly and committed publicly to address some of the issues that we're talking about. So around in August, we've issued publicly that we're going to address 5 key issues around the diversity and inclusion space. The first one is addressing health disparities, and we know that minorities, whether it's access to healthcare and things of that nature, there's a challenge. So we're pledging to address that in a number of different ways. Clinical trial diversity, which are essential to developing life-saving medicines for everyone. And we're investing heavily into making sure that We have more diversity in clinical trial sites, and making it easier for diverse individuals to come into those trials. We've increased our employee giving program with a 2-to-1 match. And while that's important, our colleagues are now able to support organizations at a higher level that fight disparities and discrimination. Workforce representation, right? That's another one that we've addressed. We've been doing a great job, but we know we can do more. And this includes tackling, gender parity and making sure that Black and Hispanic representation is high at the executive level. And the one that's near and dear to my heart, and probably yours as well, Nish, is that we've committed to spend $1 billion with diverse suppliers by 2025. And that is going to translate to jobs. And I always say, out of all 5 of those commitments, once we get there, yes, we'll give a round of applause and we'll be excited and ecstatic once we hit those milestones. However, it's the journey that we'll take to get there, the lives that will be impacted, the communities that will lift, and that is what is more important for me throughout these journeys. So I appreciate the supply diversity community, and that just shows that we have more to do, and we're looking to contribute and do our part.
When it comes to employment for people on the autism spectrum, I always believe that it's not what businesses can do for them, but what they can do for businesses. On that note, let's hear Anthony Pasellio, Vice President, Global Head of Autism at Work, um, JP Morgan Chase.
Nish, you've heard me say it 1,000 times. It was never about charity. It was all about the talent. And you'll hear other companies like DXC, SAP, Microsoft, EY, we're all friends. They do it for the same reason. There is a business case for this.
Anthony said very clearly why it is important to hire people with autism. But where do we start? How do we make it successful? Dr. Lawrence Fung, director of Stanford Neurodiversity Project, shared a playbook with us.
So we really believe that understanding the people's needs in all sorts of ways are the core to making the best process helpful for everyone. And clearly, people on the spectrum are the main people that we often talk about, and how we can create opportunities for them, setting up accommodations for them in the interview process, and so forth. So it's important on one end, and on the other end, we also need to know that there's a big ecosystem that's surrounding the neurodiverse individuals. So we want to make sure that the employers are involved, the other stakeholders are involved, like even the parents and the job coaches, and maybe the people that are in the organizations that can make decisions. So all of them are part of the ecosystem. So what we believe is that bringing them in early to figure out what is going to be the best is going to help the process move along faster.
As I already mentioned, 2020 has been a challenging year for everyone. The Black Lives Matter movement has been a clarion call to build a more inclusive society for diverse populations, including those on the spectrum. Dave Karen of Autism Speaks had important message to share.
So autism is a neurodevelopmental disability. It does not discriminate, right? So it affects, just as many children who are white or black or of color living in the United States or in Asia or in Europe. This cuts across all socioeconomic statuses as well. So, it's non-discriminatory. We need to make sure that we are taking into account, though, those other kind of conditions, those other characteristics that I think haven't always been taken into account. The lived experience of a Black man who happens to be autistic, sometimes I think we see through this autism lens and we don't give enough weight and credence to what else the person is bringing to the table, what else they've experienced through their lives. And I think this is really helping organizations like ours and others who are kind of part of this movement to really see the full person.
This chat show is founded on three pillars: empathy, employment, and innovation. We had already been seeing glimpses of discussion around empathy and employment. Now let's turn our attention to innovation, something that we experience all around us every day. In the world of business, diversity is the spark that ignites innovation. Let's look back at the episode where we had Nidra Dixon of Accenture at our guest talking about diversity and innovation.
I think if you look years and, pre-COVID and even years before that, people saw, diverse workforces or supplier diversity as a nice thing to have. And, oh, it's okay. We have one diverse company. We're good. We have one diverse person in management. We're great. Now I think everyone is seeing that it makes business sense. I think we're seeing that having different ideas come to the table drives results. I think we're seeing that small, medium, diverse businesses can be innovative. They can really help you reach your end goal. And I think the key to all of this, Nish, is that now we're seeing that we can work together. Because a large corporation's like, no, I don't need to work with a small business. We're good. Now I think you're seeing that we need to work with small businesses. We need to work with diverse owned businesses. And that to me is what's created a better ecosystem. Whereas we thought, oh, it's nice to have. Yeah, I don't need that. It's imperative. Makes perfect business sense. If you're going to be sustainable for the near future, you must have a diverse workforce. You must have a diverse supply chain. You must collaborate together, and you must co-innovate together to be sustainable in the future.
Talking about innovation, our guest Ron Deshay emphasized the need to look at the things from a different perspectives in order to innovate and overcome obstacles.
Perspective. I mean, it's the vantage point, it's the viewpoint for how you see things, and that determines how you live out in this world. It really does, because I mean, two people, and I learned this just from experience. Two people can look at the same scenario and have completely different takeaways from the situation, but how they see those situations will determine the path that they take beyond that moment. I mean, I look at what happened with this whole thing with COVID, and we could have been one of those companies that completely shut down, especially with the industry closing down and nothing being you're not able to film anything. I mean, we could have been one of those companies that basically signed out and not recovered, if you will. But that isn't the case. We've actually been able to, again, develop new arms of business that were not even there prior to the beginning of this whole thing. And that, I believe that has everything to do with perspective. It has everything to do with the ability to see past the disruption that you're looking at and to looking to and finding solutions in those situations.
Curiosity is another prerequisite for innovation and progress. Let's hear from Monica Kang of Innovators Box.
The short gist is, if you're not being curious, innovation is probably not happening, because curiosity really is the aspect of being willing to ask questions about even the most mundane and routine thing that is in your routine. And that takes courage. That takes a lot of empathy, because you're trying to understand and relate to another perspective that you might not be familiar with, trying to see it in a different way about things that are very routine. And when we don't have that lens, not only will we not have innovation, but no progress, because we're just staying in the routine of doing things as is. And when was the last time that actually made any progress, right? Especially at this time when we're all needing to reinvent the way we do and think everything. It is so critical. And so curiosity is something that I think we absolutely need, especially from the leadership level, when we feel like we know and think everything. In truth, that's the exact blind spots that we have, and that's where the gap of culture development is. And something that I encourage leaders and coach them on how to think differently, as well as through the culture and leadership development we do.
I thank each one of you for sparing so much time to come and join us and making empathy a movement for all of us. Empathy is not one person's journey. It's a societal movement, and because of all your contributions in terms of time, questions, comments, engagement, we encourage to continue this journey in 2021 with more interactive sessions that would make a bigger impact on diversity and inclusion in the workplace and in our communities. I will be back next week, same time. Until then, goodbye, happy holidays, stay well. Thank you.